A note of warning. This podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing.
Welcome to True Crime Daily, the podcast. This week, we're talking about 10 rock songs inspired by real-life criminal cases. This is Billy Jensen. I'm Owen Michael. We're talking about songs from suspected satanic rituals to missing persons and murder sprees. Real-life crime has inspired music for decades. Let's get into it.
All right. So at number 10, I got The Smiths' Suffer Little Children from 1984. This was the story of the Moores murder victims. There were 5 children that were tortured and killed by Ian Brady and his girlfriend Myra Hindley in Manchester, England in the mid-1960s. In the lyrics, it was actually the first song that the Smiths wrote together. And in the lyrics, Marcy talks about mentions the children's names. And it's an incredibly haunting song. It's the last song on their first album. I actually went to the Moores and visited the sites where it was. And the Moores is one of the most desolate. And listen, I live in the desert. Mm-hmm. The Moores is one of the most desolate places I've ever been to. It's the desert without any life, because the desert at least still has a little bit of life. You can still see a critter running around here or there. This was just nothing. Mm-hmm. And imagine how crazy it must have been at night, and how scared these kids must have been. So that is my number 10 song. It is probably one of my favorite songs, and it's the first song the Smiths ever wrote, and it's from one of my favorite bands.
It's kind of mood specific. I mean, that sounds like a Smith. That entire description sounds like a Smiths song.
Yeah.
It's bleak.
It's incredibly bleak, and they are considered, the most evil couple in the history of Great Britain. Myra and Ian.
Well, how about let's talk about REM's "What's the Frequency, Kenneth?" It's a 1993 song. It's a track from the band's Monster album. It's inspired by a 1986 attack targeting news anchor Dan Rather. Maybe not everybody remembers Dan Rather, but next to Walter Cronkite, CBS's favorite.
He was the heir to Walter Cronkite.
Indeed, a serious newsman.
Not that anybody knows who Walter Cronkite is that's listening under 30.
That's what I want to get on the
thing.
We'll
get all we'll get a picture of Walter Cronkite.
We need Walter. Anyway, Dan Rather helmed CBS News for a few decades back in the 80s and into the 90s. He was attacked. 2 assailants repeatedly asked, "What's the frequency, Kenneth?" before they fled the scene. Rather identified William Tager as one of his attackers after Tager was convicted in the fatal shooting of an NBC stagehand outside the Today Show studio in New York City. Tager was sentenced to 25 years in prison in that case and released in 2010 for good behavior. Regardless, "What's the Frequency, Kenneth?" It's a great song by REM. It's really unclear who they thought he was or why they were saying that. But Dan Rather did work in broadcasting, so
frequencies. And Rather did have a sense of humor about it. He actually recorded the song with REM too. Not the song is the REM song, and it's Michael Stipe singing it, but REM actually got Dan Rather in, and he did a very kind of stilted version of What the Frequency Can.
Which is half the joke.
You can find it on YouTube.
He's a very dry fellow, but it's good to have a sense of humor about yourself.
Exactly, especially when you're getting attacked like that. So,
for
number 8, I'm going to pick the Boomtown Rats. I Don't Like Mondays from 1979, I believe, and
another thing from across the pond.
Yes, it was inspired by a fatal shooting from Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Carlos, California. 16-year-old Brenda Ann Spencer wounded 8 children and a police officer and killed 2 adults when she opened fire from across the street. When asked by a reporter by the San Diego Tribune why she did it, Spencer said, "I don't like Mondays." That's it.
I think we can all empathize with that.
She said, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." Spencer pled guilty to 2 first-degree murder charges and assault with a deadly weapon. She was sentenced to 25 years to life and is actually up for parole this year. But this was one of the first school shootings. Even though she wasn't actually in the school at the time, she shot from across the street with a rifle. And Bob Geldof, who went on to form, Live Aid and We Are the World, the other one, the good song.
What was it? It wasn't.
Do You Know It's Christmas?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a haunting song, too.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
So Brenda Ann Spencer, when she was arrested, a reporter asked her, "Why did you do it?" And she said, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." which is pretty haunting for anybody to say after they've shot at a bunch of kids and killed 2 adults. She got 25 years to life. She's up for parole actually this year. And Bob Geldof, who started Live Aid and Band Aid, Do You Know It's Christmas, all
Band-Aid,
that. He's actually Sir Bob Geldof now.
That's true.
He and Live Aid, if you guys remember, this is something that even though we're old, our listeners will remember Live Aid because it was at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody. That was Live Aid. That was his concert.
Gotcha. I didn't see the.
You didn't
I didn't see the thing.
But this, that was one of their biggest hits. Was "I Don't Like Mondays," and it was about one of the first school shootings, and it was an Irish band talking about school shootings.
Unfortunate inspiration there. Next up, I've got Sufjan Stevens, a song called "John Wayne Gacy Jr." For those who may remember. Part of my neck of the woods, Chicagoland area. I remember as a kid, John Wayne Gacy was convicted in 1980 of murdering 33 men and boys, most of whom were found in his basement in the suburbs of Chicago. Sufjan Stevens is a folk rock singer-songwriter that comes from the 2005 album Illinois.
Have you heard that album, Illinois?
I have not.
It's great. I can give it to you.
I might actually listen to it
every
this.
song is about something in Illinois.
How that sounds annoying to somebody like you who hates Illinois and hates Chicago.
I'm all about Chicago. I just don't like people that claim they're from Chicago but really are from the Chicagoland area. So
you and the rest of Chicago.
So no, I will let you borrow it. There's a lot of really good songs on it, but there's this one in particular is an incredibly sad song, very haunting again, and. Gacy luckily was sentenced to death, and in 1994 he died by lethal injection.
It's a rough subject, and it was also particularly the case itself is very grim because this guy was a clown who performed at kids' parties and that kind of thing. Kind of spawned an entire generation of creepy clowns and some of our earlier serial killer.
You know what his clown name was?
Bobo?
Pogo.
Pogo. Yeah.
By the way, Owen was once on Bozo the Clown.
Very, very long time ago, 6 years old. I remember I did the grand prize game. Do people know what the
People
Bozo
know what
show?
Bozo is. Yeah, we'll put up a picture.
Yeah, we can find one.
We'll
anyway, I was
picture,
exceptionally cute, and if anybody has some archives
Did
there
you win?
When I was 6, I think I got to like the 4th bucket. I don't really remember. I remember being aware of the crowd, being a little intimidated. 6 years old, stage fright at that point.
Okay.
But it scarred me ever since.
All right. Well, you know what? That's what clowns will do to you. Number 6, we've got the At the Drive-In Invalid Litter Department. This is a song about Juarez, and Juarez was considered, and really is still considered, the capital of murdered women.
Doesn't get a lot of. If you're following the sort of news about this stuff, but I feel like Juarez is not widely known.
No.
It went through a huge. It was an epidemic essentially of
and it's still
women
it's still happening. Yeah,
turning up dead, murdered in horrible circumstances, unidentified. Sometimes they still. There's no resolution to it.
Yeah, and this is a town that's literally right across the border.
Yeah, it's El Paso,
and it's about the city of Juarez. Multiple women, we're talking about in the hundreds, have gone missing. Women were found later, murdered in this factory city. This started in the early 1990s. So the post-hardcore band At the Drive-In did the song "Invalid Litter Department." And that was in 2000.
I haven't heard that one. I do like that band though. Our next one, kind of along the same same lines.
You know what? This is going to my neck of the woods, and again, it's a Great Britain band, a band from England, talking about.
It's kind of the Clash reformed, or I shouldn't say reformed.
No, it's just a Clash 2.0.
Yeah, Big Audio Dynamite. We're talking about a song called "Sudden Impact" from 1985. The band's debut album, This Is Big Audio Dynamite. It was inspired by the 1984 murder of Gary Lauwers. He was discovered with multiple stab wounds and his eyes gouged out by alleged followers of a satanic cult. Ricky Casso, 17, of Long Island, also of Long Island, I should say.
That's
since
right. They were involved
that's where you have from.
This happened in Northport, and this was a famous story because apparently when Casso attacked Lauwers, he yelled, "Say you love Satan," and Lauwers said back to him while he was being stabbed, "I love my mom." And it's also famous for when we talk about grammar amongst killers. There was on the front page of Newsday it was written on this gazebo to try and show this, and this is in the middle of Satanic Panic.
Yes.
To show that there's bad stuff going on. It said Satan lives, but they had spelt it wrong. It was Satin.
Right.
Satin lives.
Right. And we should point out, as you said, the Satanic Panic. There was a period for those of us, those listeners who don't remember, who weren't with us at the time. There was a glut of in the national conversation, everything from Dungeons and Dragons to hard rock metal, Ozzy Osbourne, all the rest of it. And parents everywhere were concerned that their kids were getting into satanic rituals, et cetera. And this type of thing
it just wasn't there.
Fed the fuel.
It was a few. It really just wasn't.
It was
there.
a few isolated things that actually did happen, but it definitely created a craze. And this is one of the things, pop culture.
All right. So number 4, I'm going to go to Nebraska with Bruce Springsteen. The 1982 song, and Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska album is considered the Bruce Springsteen album for people that don't like Bruce Springsteen, because it's very stripped down. It's almost like
Are you one of those
Elliott
people?
Smith tones. No, I actually like Bruce Springsteen, but I do love this album. It's probably one of my favorite. A lot of lawman stuff in it. A lot of stories about crime and ne'er-do-wells, which he does talk about, but he doesn't often get into murder. But he talks about murder in here, and this is the case that inspired the Natural Born Killers story.
I didn't know that.
Yes. This is in 1958, let me just get this right, it was Charles Starkweather, who he was accompanied by his girlfriend, Carol Fugate. They first kill her parents, and then they go on this murder spree. And Fugate was 14 at the time, and she maintained her innocence, but she was sentenced to life. The United States Supreme Court ruled life sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional, and she was eventually paroled in 1976. But he did die, as what's talked about in the song. Bruce talks about, him being taken to the electric chair, and it's a great song. You should check it out.
Indeed. Next up, we're going to list Nirvana. Big fan of Nirvana. The song Polly. 1991, it was off of the seminal album Nevermind. Check out the entire album if you haven't somehow become aware of it yet.
Really should, yeah.
The song was actually, it's about 1987 kidnapping, rape, and torture of a 14-year-old girl. The song is incredibly it's disturbing. Prosecutors said that she was abducted. She accepted a ride, leaving a concert in Tacoma, Washington. Nirvana is actually out of Washington. So they were writing about something that happened in the state there. She was taken to a mobile home. She was assaulted, blindfolded. She was suspended from a ceiling. She was tortured. It's awful, awful stuff. Details I will spare you. She escaped while they were stopped at a gas station, and she later, this Polly, led authorities to the mobile home, and he was arrested within days after. Gerald Friend was the perpetrator of this one. He got 75 years. It goes into some of the details.
He had actually been convicted 27 years prior in a similar case. So, again, another bad guy that got out and was able to do something else like that. But Polly was a hero. She was able to survive this and actually went and helped catch the guys.
Yeah, and the song kind of takes her point of view, and it's a bleak song, but it's worth listening to along with the whole.
And again, we
thing.
will have all of these songs on TrueCrimeDaily.com, links to them so you can check them out. Number 2, I'm going to go with Big Black's Jordan, Minnesota from 1986. This was a 80s punk band. Jordan, Minnesota is named for the Midwestern city where 24 adults and 1 juvenile were charged for their alleged involvement in what prosecutors claimed was an incestuous sex ring involving dozens of children between the ages of 2 and 17, which is so gross, so awful, between 83 and 84. All cases but one were eventually dismissed, with defendants accusing prosecutors of engaging in a witch hunt. The remaining case ended in an acquittal. So, again, this is what was happening with the McMartin case that was happening at the time, which was part of that Satanic Panic. In 83, 84, in the early 80s, it wasn't enough to be afraid of Russia, which we all were, and afraid of nuclear war, which we thought was going to happen at any second.
Generation X.
But it was there was also all of the Satanic Panic stuff, and some of this is what is what happened.
The 80s were a wild time, folks. Leading off the top here, we've got Bon Jovi, the song August 7th. August 7, I should say, came out in 1997. This one was personal for John Bon Jovi. He wrote the song from the album Destination Anywhere. It's about the August 7th, 1996 murder of his personal manager's 6-year-old daughter, Catherine Corzelius. The girl's body was found by her mother and brother a mile from the family's Austin, Texas home. Investigators determined she suffered a fatal blow to the head at some point during her walk home from a community mailbox where her mother allowed her to check the mail. The attacker is yet to be found.
Yeah. And, rarely most of these stories are people that saw them and then wrote about them. This was a personal connection. That's why we put it at number 1 on our list. Again, you can go to truecrimedaily.com and also our Facebook page. We have links to all of these songs.
You can listen
if
to
we
them
missed
yourself.
any, tell us.
Yeah.
We did 10, but bring them on to us. You
We
can
can
bring
make
us
a compilation.
Leadbelly's Where Do You Sleep Last Night? I know is one of them. Hey Joe is another one. But was that actually a real murder? Don't give us Folsom City Blues because he just made that up. That was not a thing.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then of course Trent Reznor's got a bunch and everything like that. So
He did go to. He did sing it in prison though.
He did sing it in prison.
A lot of
He
folks
did.
don't.
He did.
So that
he does
connects
have a
as well.
song about one. He got a song called Starkweather. What was it? Stark City Jail, I think it is. About him when he
actually was.
he was arrested for being
pub-
out of on curfew.
Oh, was it curfew? It
Yeah.
was public intoxication. or
Yeah,
something
well, it
along
probably
those
was
lines.
that too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Anyway,
Different times.
so again, please, we will be back next week with our normal. I think we're doing this right now because I'm probably out of town on some book thing.
Indeed.
And so we will be back next week.
Check us out for fresh crime stories every week. Listen to us on
listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. Subscribe.
check us out on YouTube.
Check us out on YouTube and
Our Facebook page as well.
in the meantime, yeah, we're putting about at least 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stories a day up with the freshest crime news possible every day.
Every day. And we talk about the ones that the national conversation is about that week, every week. So
That's right.
continue to tune in. We'll see you next week.
Right. All right. See you next week. And remember,
Don't do crime.